In today's video, we're going to continue on our series where we're covering all 31 NHL teams, recapping their 17-18 season, and looking ahead to what to expect in the 2018 offseason. Today's team we're discussing is the Calgary Flames, and that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, today we're discussing the Calgary Flames. Now let's take a look at the Calgary Flames 2017-18 season, and we're going to discuss what to expect from them in this offseason. Obviously, this past regular season was another disappointing year for the Flames. There were many points during the season where they looked like they were going to be a playoff team, but they ended up falling up short. They really finished the season on some low points with some bad losses coming down the stretch and get them out of the playoffs yet again. They've only made the playoffs twice in the past 9 years, although in a lot of those years they did come very close. Now, the Flames finished with a record of 37, 35, and 10, giving them 84 points on the season. They finished with a minus 30 goal differential. Obviously, that part wasn't very good. They finished with 218 goals for, which put them 26th in the league, and they finished with 248 goals against for 19th. So neither one of those are very solid, but obviously the goals for was even worse than the goals against. So this team could obviously use some more scoring up front for sure. Obviously, Mike Smith getting hurt, missing a fair bit of time down the stretch did not help things either. He was having a pretty good season, gave them some of their better goaltending that they've seen in recent years, but it wasn't quite enough. Obviously, the time he missed due to injury and the fact that they were getting trouble getting consistent scoring out of some of their other players just did not go well at all. Obviously, Sean Monahan was injured a lot down the stretch as well. That didn't help. They just had a lot of things kind of not go well. But let's take a look here at some of the bright spots and then some of the not so bright spots for this Flames team this past year, and then we'll jump into the offseason discussion. So obviously they had some pretty good years again out of Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. Those two are their leading forwards for sure. Gaudreau ended up with 24 goals and 60 assists for 84 points. So a very solid season for Johnny Hockey. He continues to put up some impressive numbers. And if they could only get some more help up front, I think those numbers could get even better. Same with Sean Monahan. He's been a pretty consistent 30-goal guy. He scored 31 goals and 33 assists for 64 points. And he played a big chunk of the season with some injuries too. So Monahan's definitely a top center in this league. Plays well with Gaudreau. So they've got some really good young guys there to kind of lead the charge at the forward group. They could, like I said, though, they could use more help. But we'll get into that here in the offseason discussion momentarily. A few other bright spots. I thought Dougie Hamilton had a tremendous year in the back end. He scored 17 goals, put up 27 assists for 44 points, and was +1. Now, the +1's not overly impressive, but when you look at the team, the fact that as a team they were minus 30 in the goal differential, and a lot of the other defensemen did not have positive plus-minus ratings. That actually isn't too bad considering all things and how things went for the Flames this past year. Matthew Tkachuk continued to develop and improve his play, scored 24 goals and 25 assists as well for 49 points. So obviously he's another pretty solid member of that top 6 forward group. Plays an agitating style as well. So he certainly has a unique role, but he's continuing to grow and develop into his role with the Flames as well. I thought a couple other guys that kind of had breakout years as well was Mark Jankowski and Michael Ferland. I thought they both ended up playing pretty good roles for the Flames. Jankowski put up 17 goals and Ferland put up 21. So those are some pretty solid numbers. Really considering that they're progressing along nicely as well. So at least they've got some optimism there. They got some prospects on the way. We'll jump into the prospect talk here momentarily as well. Now, if you take a look at things that did not go so well, obviously they have some guys that are not on great contracts considering the production they're getting. Like Troy Brouwer, for example, has $4.5 million for 2 more years, only put up 6 goals and 16 assists. Michael Furley's starting to decline as well. He's got a similar contract, 2 more years at 4.3. He only scored 10 goals this past year. Obviously, youngster Sam Bennett continued to struggle. He had his moments where things looked a little bit better, but overall only put up 11 goals. And Curtis Lazar, who they gave up a second-round pick to the Senators not too long back, continues to struggle. He's yet to develop into a regular NHLer to put up any kind of production. Only put up 2 goals and 10 assists last year. So obviously they got some guys that are struggling. At least in the case of Bennett and Lazar, they're not problematic contracts. But like Frolik and Troy Brouwer, if they could find a way to move those contracts, I think that would be a tremendous help to get them some more flexibility to kind of round out their top 6. Because obviously, going into the offseason discussion here now, obviously, like, they need some more scoring. Scoring was down. They do have some bright spots in that top 6 forward group, between Gaudreau, Monahan, Tkachuk. Some of the other guys I mentioned, if they could play more like a third line role, like guys like Ferland and Jankowski, that would make a big difference, and they could kind of round out and balance out the scoring more. So it's been widely speculated. We've talked many times here about some trade rumors in the last number of weeks since the season ended, involving the Flames, and they may be looking to trade a defenseman to try to grab another guy in the top 6 forward. Dougie Hamilton's a name that came up a bunch of times. I'm sure that's a guy they're very reluctant to give up. And in some of the other videos we've talked about this, I've kind of stressed the point that they need to be very careful here with Hamilton. I mean, he's one of the younger guys on their back end, and arguably their most productive as well. So you have Mark Giordano still putting up decent numbers, but he's getting up there in years. You've got Travis Hamonic, you get TJ Brody, you've got Michael Stone. Like Brody or Hamonic's probably the more likely guy that probably should be moved. I know he may not fetch the return that Hamilton would, and maybe they need to look at packaging some things up here, but they definitely need to get some more scoring in the top 6 area for sure. They have some guys that can round out that bottom 6 forwards, I think, that kind of fit pretty well. They've got some prospects who can jump in here. We might see guys like a Dylan Dubé get a chance next year as well. Dylan Dubé had a tremendous season in the Western Hockey League this past year. Ended up going to the World Juniors, was captain for Team Canada, so he had a tremendous tournament, did very well. So obviously he looks like to be a bright prospect for the Flames. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a shot this year. Hard to say if he'll stick with the big club all year or not, but he'll definitely get an opportunity. He may, maybe play a bit between the Flames and their American Hockey League affiliate. Hard to say, but he's definitely got to keep your eyes on as well. And they've also got Juuso Välimäki. Välimäki, I think, is a defenseman that would probably work well with Coach Bill Peters as well. I can see Välimäki possibly jumping into this top 6 defense group as well. So, it is possible that if they move a defenseman out, they can replace him with Välimäki. So it makes sense for them to try to move a defenseman for a forward. It just depends on the deal they can find. Obviously, one thing that's a problematic scenario for them this offseason as well is they don't have any draft picks in the 2018 draft in the first 3 rounds. Those picks have all been traded during various deals. A few of those went in the Travis Hamonic deal. So, I mean, obviously, that's a problem. This is a very deep draft. They could definitely have either a forward or defenseman that could fit well into this roster at some point with where they would have been picking. But now that pick belongs to the New York Islanders. So obviously that's I wouldn't be completely shocked to see them try to obtain some earlier first, second round draft picks. But to be honest, I just don't think they have a lot of assets they can move to kind of, that's going to bring back that kind of return. Like a Hamilton would do that, but at the same time, I don't think he's a player that they should move. I mean, he's still pretty young. He's still, growing into his offensive upside here. I mean, he had a tremendous growth this past year, so I would hang on to Dougie Hamilton if it were me, but at the same time, they do need help in other areas, so it's hard to say. As far as goaltending goes, Mike Smith did pretty well. David Rittich is a restricted free agent, as is youngster John Gillies, so I mean, it's hard to say how those contracts are going to work moving forward, but obviously I think they really need to try to move Gillies into a more solid backup role if they're going to try to start grooming him to hopefully take over from Mike Smith here in the next year or so. Gillies is kind of looked upon as the goalie of the future, but they need to see some more growth and development out of him to see for sure if he's capable of that. And the only way to do that is they need to give him more playing time. So I'm not sure what happens with Rittich this year, but both of them need new contracts. They're both RFAs, so I'm sure they'll probably both be qualified and both get new deals. Hard to say which one's going to play the role of backup. Maybe one of them gets moved out. If they did move one, it would probably more likely to be Rittich, would be my thinking. They also have Mason McDonald in their system as well, who's a little bit younger than both of them and probably still a few years away from getting a crack at the NHL. So they do have some decent young goalie prospects to work with. So it's hard to say how they proceed there, but both those guys are RFAs. Speaking of other RFAs, Mark Jankowski needs a new deal. I'm sure he'll definitely get something pretty decent after putting up 17 goals last year. Brett Kulak on the back end as well. He needs a new contract, and he'll probably get another short-term contract as well, would be my guess. They have a bunch of UFAs. I'm not really sure if really any of these guys will be back. It is possible, I guess, if any of them are back, to be short-term, low-value deals. But they have Tanner Glass, Chris Stewart, Chris Verteeg, Matt Stajan, and Matt Bartkowski. So they have a lot of those guys. Like I said, I can't really say with any certainty that any of them are going to return. It is possible. Maybe they give Chris Stewart a chance to play more prominent role and see if he can put up some goals. I mean, Chris Stewart has been a 20-goal guy in the past. Hard to say if he can continue that or not, but I'm not really sure that they're even going to bother bringing any of those players back. If you take a look at their other guys and they have on a roster with some of the prospects and what some of the upgrades they're looking to make, I'm not sure it really makes a lot of sense for any of those players to return next season. Calgary Flames have already gone through their coaching change. Obviously, they moved on from head coach Glenn Gulletson. He was fired right after the regular season came to a close. Obviously, general manager Brad Treliving had in mind who he wanted from the get-go as soon as Gulletson was let go, and he was able to bring in Bill Peters from Carolina to take over the head coaching duties. So all of their vacancies that way have been looked after as far as the coaching staff. So that's all looked after. So it will be interesting to see how they proceed here in the offseason. But in my opinion, the big thing they need is they need some more scoring up front. They could use another top 6 forward, and it's hard to say how they go about doing that, but the main area of strength this team has to deal with is from their back end. Now, obviously, with the back end the way it was on paper last year, looked great. They didn't perform necessarily up to task like it could have been. But between, you've got Dougie Hamilton, Mark Giordano, TJ Brody, you've got Travis Hamonic, you've got Michael Stone, you've got Kulak, and then you've got Valimaki coming in. So, I mean, there is lots of guys back there that can play. So definitely somebody that likely is to get moved to try to obtain a forward. The only problem is like I said, they don't have any draft picks they can package with these guys to try to go after maybe a bigger name. They have been linked to the Phil Kessel rumblings. Not really sure that's something that would go down. Yes, I think Kessel would be a fit there. I'm just not sure they're going to have what it takes to get him. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh likely would want a defenseman back, and they do have a defenseman they can move for sure, but it's probably going to be Dougie Hamilton they would want, and I just don't see that deal being something that happens, but you never know. But definitely, in my opinion, they need some more scoring. They need to get, hopefully, a healthy Mike Smith and get John Gillies into some games this year to kind of help develop him. That back end needs to be better next year, but they have a lot of potential. They have a lot of good guys. They just need to position them correctly, play them in the right pairings with the right amount of minutes, and I think things can be better back there. But the Flames need to have a bounce-back season. This team has been kind of, a mediocre team for some time. Like I said, they've only made the playoffs twice in the last 9 years, but a lot of those years they weren't really terrible. They haven't really been bad enough to get like a real high pick where they could potentially get like a franchise-altering type player. So with this Flames team, I think they can probably do some tweaking if they can add another top 6 forward by moving a defenseman, maybe inject some more youth with some of their young guys that have a lot of potential here. Maybe this Flames team could be better next year. Obviously, staying healthy is going to be a big part of that as well. If they can get another good performance out of Mike Smith and help John Gillies develop as well, then that can hopefully start working on solidifying their goaltending moving forward for the future. So let me know down in the comments section, what do you expect from the Calgary Flames this offseason? If they are going after a top 6 forward, who would you recommend that they try to bring into the Flames organization that would be reasonable for them to obtain with what they have to trade out? If you're new to the channel as well, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button as well. I'd really appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.